of a complex world that can never go anywhere. To get the complexity out of life, therefore, is to get it out of yourself. To get out of yourself the need for anything artificial, the need for any stimulant, the need for any possession that detracts from freedom. Freedom is freedom from things, freedom to worship without ulterior motive, and freedom to take self-interest out of the rituals of faith. These things become very interesting to people who have perhaps suffered long from the sorrows of worldliness. So we get to the problem that probably interests everyone more or less, and that is health, and the attitude of these people on the matters of health. Health must be a proper relationship between the inner life and the outer body of the individual. The body is a kind of a house. The body is a vehicle, Vahan called it in India, by means of which the inner life manifests for a little while in this physical world. The body, therefore, is like a temple. You build a good temple, you dedicate it, you maintain it. You build a good body, you abuse it and lose it. Now the body itself is a temple. And that is well pointed out in this old play that we have here in this country, The Servant in the House. It is this building that we have built without hands, a building that is built by an inner life moving out through us. We get this house and we build it. We maintain it partly, and then we begin to abuse it. And as soon as we are old enough to do wrong, we start. And we keep on doing wrong until we wreck that body. And we are doing it now with narcotics and various abuses. We are doing it constantly by worry, agitation, and dedication to exploitation. We are trying to build an outer wealth in a universe that does not understand such rules. We are on a little ball moving through space, and whether we make $1 billion or not does not mean anything in space. It is only our own ability to gloat over the small things that we do which prevent us from realizing the great thing we could be, a true human being. So between man as he is now and his own humanity must lie an interval of illusion, an interval of fantasy, an interval of belief in things that are not real and are not true. Now the giant may go a little further in these things than we have to. For the giants it means all kinds of things. For one thing, there is one sect of the giants which has given up clothing. And tropical country makes that quite feasible from a physical standpoint. But we can hardly imagine that happening here, although in some cases we're getting very close to it. But in any event, they say that clothing is a sordid luxury. Well, probably it isn't necessarily, and I think no giant will interfere or criticize simple, dignified dress. But I don't think that the giants would have much interest in high styles, or all this business that we do to glamorize the outside and leave the inside suffering from pernicious anemia. We need to get our values straight. We need to use what we have to increase what we are. We need to have thoughts and attitudes and beliefs and convictions that bring us together as human beings, that we are not competing with each other for who has the biggest house or the newest car. The problem is to have what we need, use it well, and share our inner life with all who can benefit from it. So we find the giants very simple. They don't use the jewelry, they don't use any of these things. We don't say you have to go to any such extreme as this. But when you have trinkets, admit they're trinkets. Enjoy them. But do not commit crime to get them. Do not make a bad marriage in order to get a bankroll. Do not do anything from ulterior motive, but be happy with simple, factual things, and realize that a true and sincere friend is beyond value. and that a close and understanding and sympathetic family is the greatest treasure since the house of the Greshite. So when the emperor asked for the fortunes of the house, the mother brought her children and said, "This is my wealth." And that is the kind of thing that the Jains work with. The idea that wealth is the fulfillment of responsibility, the presence of peace, the presence of understanding, the charity of things, the willingness to do whatever is best for the other rather than forever the convenience of ourselves. Convenience is destroying us, but this idea of not having the possessive factor, cultivating harmlessness, is a great virtue. Now let's think a little bit about what was meant by harmlessness. Harmlessness is freedom from misuse of whatever it may be. To be constantly in the presence of the abuse of value. When we harm something, today there is a great deal of harmfulness in the air. We destroy each other's cities. We destroy each other's works of art. We betray each other with bombs and weapons. What do we gain? More bombs, more weapons, more death, more misery. Why has it been that a people or a human race, with a history such as we have had for thousands of years, has never caught on to the fact that something was wrong? That the wrong was not simply that the wrong side won the battle. The wrong was that there was a battle at all. It isn't that the other fellow is better than we are. It is actually the fact that neither person is better unless it results in peace. Always we have to recognize, therefore, that harmlessness is arbitration of all difficulties. The harmlessness is the idea that we find scattered throughout both testaments of the Bible, to do those things which are hurt to none and of benefit to all. Now, to be a benefit to all means maybe to overcome selfishness a little bit, and selfishness is a virtue or a vice that we're going to cling to as long as possible. Self-interest is now the great motivating power, and also this self-interest is now manifesting its supreme weakness, because in the name of self-interest we are using drugs that will destroy us within 5 years. Why? Because in those 5 years we will feel 10 feet tall, but at the end of the 5 feet, at the end of the time, we will lie 6 feet deep. There is no solution this way. The idea of wealth and all these things that we cherish are actually forms of intoxication. They are drugs, psychological or literal. They are ways in which we deceive ourselves into thinking when happy while the miseries are piling up. Therefore, the idea of harmlessness means not to injure ourselves, not to destroy the body that has been given to us, but to protect it as we would protect anything of value and anything of importance. That we should constantly try every way possible to keep the peace and keep the truth. Now, the actual work of the Jain community is that, whether we see most of it, is that the very simple nature of the faith is not one that requires constant attendance to any particular denomination. It would be something that anyone, regardless of their religious belief, would find acceptable. Namely, that there is always hospitality. There is always the sharing of moderate things. There is always friendliness and a recognition of the basic unity of all that lives. And this unity reaches out to include the creatures of all of the other sentient worlds. There's a story about a Hindu holy man who was seen passing an anthill. He paused long enough to crumble a little of his bread and toss it in so that the ants would have something to eat. We need that necessarily here, but it is a spirit. It is a spirit of sharing and giving, a respect for life. And if, as Burbank pointed out, we were correct in the raising of flowers, there would be no insects bother them. But we would need nothing to protect the rose from the aphis if it was not that we have damaged the life protection that nature gave that rose. We have done something with the rose we should not have done, and it has lost its power to protect itself. And it is the same way with human beings. When we do things to them that destroy their defense mechanisms in biology and physics, then they are open to all kinds of ailments. Ailments are painful and expensive, and they should be avoided. But you cannot break the law constantly without the law finally moving in on you. So the only answer is to so regulate life that we are not going to be victims of our own mistakes. Now, this does not mean that we would have to go as far as they do in their idea of harmlessness. We probably can't at this particular time. But it means that we can begin to curb, by reflection, some of the mistakes that we make. We can say to ourselves, I'm saving up a little money, and in 10, 15, 20 years I'll probably be gone. And what's going to happen to the money? Is I'm going to leave it to my children? Yes, possibly. But in your heart, do you believe that these children will use it well? There'll be grave doubts. I've talked to a great many people making wills who know perfectly well that anything that they leave will be abused. Or what else there is to do with it? The answer is, if it is gained honorably, use it for the common good. Do not be deceived, however, by leaving it to some extravagant organization that will waste it or contrive to take care of it for their good. But so arrange your affairs that you know where it is going to go, what good it is going to do, and whether or not it will fulfill the purposes that you intended. In the same way of employment, when you enter looking for employment, what employment is best? The answer is that employment which most fully expresses yourself. Now, it is often hard to do that under present conditions, where jobs are few and candidates are many. But there is always one possibility, and that is to try and select something that is useful, choosing something that is helpful and useful, even though perhaps the financial return is not quite so favorable. Always think in terms of quality, and the qualities that you create will take care of you. This world now is just filled with lonely people, and it's filled with people who have tried hard. Many are hurt, many are disillusioned, many are sick. They are the result of what happens in a world of fantasy, a world of things that never were true and never can be true, but a world which suggests that the easiest way to get out of it is to play with the rest. Do it their way, or they will penalize you even while you're alive. Well, very few people are penalized to the degree that they cannot, to some degree, determine their own state of life. You can't do it on the outside. The most important is to do it on the inside. Make certain that the soul sits comfortably in the body. Make certain that the soul is not disturbed by arguments, dissensions, and mystery dramas on TV. Make sure that the inner life is not perturbed by hard rock music or something of that kind. Surround yourself with as much harmony as possible, so that this harmony can help to protect the person that lives in the body. Actually, the person in the body now has very little chance of expression. The surface is so cluttered that no one wants to pay any attention to that still small voice of conscience that gets stiller and smaller every day. But we have the right to so live that the inner life can speak, that it can give us a directive, If we are quiet and do not try to force